How's it going, Monstro?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm trying to post a announcement quick. Can you tag the radio channel? Is that a thing you can do?
Tag it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's outside my wheelhouse.
I just won't tag it.
Should be able to.
All right, nice. Well, how's your week going, Monstro?
It's been eventful. I guess it's Tuesday now, so I made it this far.
Yeah, what day was the hack again? Was that Friday or Thursday?
It was a 15th, I think. I think it was the 15th.
15. So a full week ago.
Right? That would have been a Tuesday. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, man, time flies in crypto.
Yeah, that was for me. I'm in the States, so that was a early morning, Tuesday morning. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanna get into all that. Yeah, but before we started talking about all that, um, first of all, I wanted to give some people some time to stream in, but then, well, yeah, I guess we can start because we're recording, so people will be able to hear this after the fact. But just to introduce, I'm Paul2. I'm a One Hive contributor, full-time DAO contributor, and I've been in this space for about a year. And my pre DAO life was in growth and marketing and operations for different startup companies. So that's kind of the skills I'm able to bring into the DAO space, and it kind of just winds up meaning that I do a little bit of everything that's not related to dev work. But Monstro, how about you introduce yourself and how you first got into the Web3 world?
Yeah, so I'm Monstro. I go by Monstro usually, and I work pretty much on Agave mostly now, which is the lending and borrowing platform, fork of Agave on Gnosis Chain, and kind of was a little bit of a spin-off from One Hive. I came across One Hive. I think it was 2020, October 2020, somewhere in there, and really got into crypto probably 2017, somewhere around there. Probably because of my engineering background. So it just kind of interested in me a little bit. I actually heard about it back in 2012 and did a little bit of research, maybe about 30 minutes or so. But the guy that told me about it, he was a kind of a shady guy to begin with. So I kind of questioned anything he says, and it looked pretty suspicious to me. And I was like, "How do you make money out of thin air? I don't get this mining thing." And so ignored it. And then when I heard about it in 2017, I was like, "Oh man, I need to look at this a little closer." And so been pretty involved in like just researching it, but really haven't gotten into the space of where I was like actually involved until 2020 when I stumbled across One Hive.
Yeah, one of the most impressive things about you, for me, just seeing you around the space, is how many conversations are going with so many different projects in so many different areas. And the it's, I think, kind of an under uh, appreciated part of the DAO space is just physically connecting the communities and talking to the different people that can work together on projects and just understand what each other is doing so that they can be better able to do stuff in this space. So that's just like seeing how many conversations you've been in over the year that I've been doing this is kind of mind blowing and super impressive. But I'm not even sure how much of what you do that actually is. Is that just like one part of a
Yeah,
lot of things?
yeah, no, I appreciate the what you're saying there. Yeah, I mean, I will say that yeah, I wish I could be a little bit more focused on one thing rather than be so um, broad focused. But I find that that's kind of like my natural personality to begin with. If I look at like my traditional like works, I've always been more of a jack of all trades and not really a master at anything. And so I tend to like get involved in just about everything, not really specializing in one thing specifically. So it's kind of a natural, I think, progression that I've kind of found or have gotten involved into the DAO space. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that I kind of reach on to are trying to like find a place where we can connect communities, and oftentimes I don't really get as involved in the deep discussions of those communities. And oftentimes it's like, hey, here's this other project. You two guys should get together and talk. And then I'll have a couple conversations and then I'll peace out as the conversation goes. And as you've probably seen, I'll get in early on the conversation, connect the groups, and then often I'll move on to the next thing, not adding like great amount of depth to that conversation. So I don't mean to like um, downplay any of my own work or upplay it, but like either way. But that's kind of what I tend to like find to be more like successful at doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a new role like in whatever the rest of the world does. You have companies that are privately owned, and you can't really have people that just work by going between companies and saying, "Hey, your product does this, that works well with this thing." And like they need to build partnerships, and they're way more siloed, and there's a lot more like internal considerations to even talk to these other products. But in the DAO space, everyone is unsiloed and everyone's working together. And a lot of it does just seem to be connecting the right people at the right time and saying that there's something that they can be working on together. And then like when all it comes down to at the end of the day is a vote, a proposal that goes up, and people either support it or don't support it. It's, you can get so much more done. And it, yeah, just like physically getting those conversations together seems like it is 80% of the battle of a lot of that stuff actually happening. It's,
Yeah, I would agree completely. I mean, like even when you look at the process of a DAO, um, ultimately like anybody can get involved, but it seems like there's like this huge learning curve of people either like natural desire to want to be more passively involved and not get involved, or maybe it's the fact that like there's this hurdle where people just don't know how to get involved. And I kind of try to think back to like my experience, and yeah, there's absolutely a hurdle. Like, how do you get involved? How do you do something? And there's really not a really good like workflow on like how to do that. Lots of DAOs like attempt, and the more that they attempt to do that, it seems like the more hierarchy they create, like a more like structured organizational approach. Whenever you try to like provide a solution for that question or that problem, and so yeah, I think that it's interesting to see like how all it takes is just simply using the protocol or something like that without almost like without much red tape. Like for instance, like Agave, we decided to go ahead and do like our reward system using the symmetric finance, which is a bouncer fork on Gnosis Chain, and so like now you have like this layers of integration of like the reward token and using a balancer pool. So now instead of it being a 50-50 pool, it's a 60-40 pool, and just like utilizing things out there that benefit the ecosystem and the protocol and gets exposure to the entire ecosystem. Trying to do that in like the centralized world just doesn't seem to happen as easily, but maybe it's because of the field that I'm in. I'm not really sure, but the space that we're in now is I'm really enjoying the the freedom to be able to like explore and innovate and be like a true entrepreneur in this space without some government official or some elitist telling you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of awesome stuff about working in the space, but then there's also the dreaded things that can happen, which is what happened last week. And it's the type of thing that I think everyone kind of thinks in the back of their mind can happen all the time, but you just hope it doesn't. And that was
Yeah.
the Agave hack, or well, not
Yeah,
necessarily.
Yeah, that's an interesting situation that took place in the sense that I don't know if I just gotta like I try to think about it a little bit like people's perception of what took place, and I don't know if it's because I've been in the space for so long, I just have a different view on things. But like I still view this entire space as an R&D project. I mean, I don't view it as like this new uh, decentralized finance, fully secure, efficient, system that is just ready to like take over the entire global economy through this decentralized payment method. Yeah, those are like the really cool visionary videos that you see like and marketing gimmicks, but the reality is like we're still learning a lot, and it's still very very difficult to build on something that has been essentially fully deployed and runs 24/7 and really difficult to make any changes to. Like, it's very much still like an R&D project where we're just trying to figure out how to make it all work while it's in production, rather than like working on it offline and getting it all tweaked out and fine tuned. And so when that exploit happened, like my initial thought was it's all gone. Like everything I haven't invested in it, it's gone. It's not recovering it, because as a user, I take the risk. I'm 100% liable for my own actions, and versus like a centralized finance where you can go to like your bank or whatever the process is, and you would expect like some sort of like reimbursement or coverage. Or if somebody takes your credit card, they swipe it and it ends up being somebody else, they'll freeze the account and pull the money back and you'll get reimbursed. Like I don't expect that out of crypto. And so when I started listening to the people, um, it's just a different ball game. Years later, of like the expectation of the people in this community are a lot of people from, I guess, um, that are new to the space, but have this higher expectation. And so, trying to align to that is going to be a bit of a challenge, but um, I think it's an interesting one, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. But how did you first find out about the hack?
I think it was one of our devs. It was minutes after the hack, and uh, Zed sent a DM to our private channel saying, looks like everything's on fire, and had a screen capture of the Tenderly transactions and the withdrawals of all the funds. And so went over to the Agave, and sure enough, it looked like either we were getting really good utilization out of our platform with 100% APRs, or or something else was going on. So yeah, so I actually ended up yeah, that was a busy day. We spent the whole day on that, and just trying to figure out what all took place, and you know, kind of did the firefighting of freezing the platform right away, so that no other users could deposit. Yeah, and then later found out that
Yeah.
finance also got exploited. So at that point, we actually reached out to they. That would have been like maybe somewhere around 2 hours after the hack took place. We were already in conversations with the Agave team, or the Agave community, and started those conversations, and then actually reached out to some other lending environment, giving them a heads up. But after maybe 3 or 4 hours into it, it appeared that it was Gnosis specific, and with it being Gnosis specific, there weren't any other lending protocols other than SushiSwap, whatever their platform's called. I don't recall at this time, but but they're a little bit different. So
Did you already know at that point that it was a Gnosis Chain wide issue? That
we did not know, but we kept on asking the question, why did two lending protocols get hit within 3 minutes of each other? And the only things we have in common is we're both using Chainlink price feeds, and we're on Gnosis Chain, because one is a compound finance fork and the other one is Aave fork. And so we spoke with Chainlink right away. We realized that Chainlink was good with the price feed. There was nothing there showing. And, so the only other thing is that there's something going on with Gnosis. It did take a little while to figure out what was going on with Gnosis, but it really didn't take that long. I mean, I would say within less than 6 hours of the exploit, pretty much everybody knew that it was a reentrancy attack. The issue was, and some people were, trying to be the first person on Twitter to say what it was. And the issue wasn't so much like what happened, like what transactions took place. It was more about how did this happen, in the sense that, and this is getting a little bit deeper than maybe I can go, but Luigi and Annie, right off the get go, saw the transactions, saw what was happening, but a little bit confused on like how did the person actually do this. And so just because you can see where it's coming from and what's happening doesn't necessarily mean it's very clear as to how to reproduce an event.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's we knew right away that it was a reentrancy, and it was just kind of difficult to figure out like, okay, how do we avoid, or why did this happen? And
Yeah. And how involved was the Gnosis Chain team in those conversations?
yeah, so like that was the really cool thing about the whole experience, is that everybody was really open. We got on the phone with Chainlink, we got on the phone with Aave, 100 Finance. We have group chats with them, and Gnosis Chain. We got group chats with them. Even like some of the older xDai, team members like Igor. And so we had a lot of people from every direction trying to help out, with lots of different chats going, and being very supportive really good communication. Like there was really no holding back on the collaboration of trying to make sure everything was you know all our I's are dotted, T's are crossed. I think the only challenge I would say, like hindsight, looking back, so we reached out to like Etherscan, and we reached out to like some of these other like because once when it goes across the bridge, it's a little bit difficult to like stop or withhold any of it. But we reached out like SushiSwap and Uniswap and Etherscan and several protocols. And as far as I know, I don't know if we've ever heard anything back from any of that. Those requests to like essentially get ahead of this, and hindsight, I think if I were to do like a post-mortem on it, I think the biggest um, response plan is like, I don't know if, and I don't even have a conversation with Tornado at this point, but how do they go about preventing the use of their protocol? Are they even interested in preventing the use? I'm not familiar enough with those protocols to know whether or not they even have that functionality, or how decentralized those protocols and trustless and permissionless they are. But could we have done something there to prevent those transactions to essentially go through? I don't know.
Yeah. So
But,
the way I
but
found
it's not to say we didn't try though.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, I remember Luigi saying something at one point that the the list of transactions to go through was something like an ungodly amount of transactions that was going to take someone a year to get through each individual one.
Yeah, and I think here's some alpha on it, that if for those that don't look at code and stuff and transactions, so the actual execution of that exploit was called test. So their test was a pretty nice little test.
Interesting. Yeah. So the way that I found out was actually from the Chainlink chat, because I'm in that Chainlink Telegram, and I saw the message from you to the Chainlink team asking if there were any issues with the feeds. And once I saw that, I was like, uh-oh, this doesn't sound good. And then going into the Agave chat, it was very impressive how active you and Luigi were in the chats. Like just communicating, even though you guys didn't know anything, and like anything that was being said at that point was speculation. But you were just very active on the chat, and I know that the people who had money in Agave and were looking at that felt way better just knowing that you guys were on it versus I'm sure the other end of it is just the rug pull feeling where a platform's hacked and you go in and the devs are all quiet. And I would imagine a dev in that situation really not wanting to talk to the community. And I also imagine that you guys must have been getting an ungodly number of DMs at that time. Were people like messaging you asking for whatever information they could get?
Yeah. To be honest, like individual DMs, I don't get too many of those. I think probably Stonky does, but no. I think most of my DMs, I actually turn those things off. Like, if you want to talk about something, let's take it in a public chat. I try to avoid those DMs as much as possible, but it's not to say I don't have DMs, because, as you know, like a lot of our chats are through DM as well. So yeah, we definitely had lots of side conversations going on in many different areas, and so.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are your kind of feelings about how this affects both Agave and Gnosis Chain, and do you like consider this as just something that happens and people got to get used to it, or is this something that is like
Yeah. So I think obviously my view or take on it has modified a little bit. And I haven't actually been involved in too many exploits myself, and so um, those that I do get exploited on, like literally when I go into the project, I'm like, okay, it's not if this gets hacked, it's when, and can I get in and out fast enough that I don't get affected? And that's been my approach in many of these like DeFi spaces. But then there's like Curve and Aave and Uniswap and like even when I invest in those, or if I tell other people about them in my personal circle, I'll be like, you know, Uniswap is probably the safest. It's the most time tested, and so you're pretty safe going there, especially if you're on Ethereum. But like, you can take a little bit of risk and like maybe deposit on Uniswap on Polygon, but now you're risking yourself to some essentially contract exposure. So when I'm making these decisions, I'm thinking about contract exposure. I'm thinking about risk of the protocol itself. And so you know, Curve and Aave, like each one of those, the more complicated it gets, the more chance there is of something like this happening. And everyone knows the Vitalik quote of like $1 billion hack is a multi-billion-dollar hack is coming. It's not like if, it's when. So one of these big protocols is really going to get hit. And like Wormhole, I think was last biggest one, and who knows how they got bailed out. I think there's speculation that Bitfinex got involved in bailing that out, but like the space is definitely it's changing. And so like when this happened and like as I've been going through this, I think I've been more open to the idea of like how, maybe we should take an approach where we do try to do everything we can to make it right. Even though like the users, in my opinion, still hold liability, I think we got to do everything we can to reimburse that. And how do we do that? And at the end of the day, it's going to be like several different methods of doing that. It's not going to be like all agave. And Gnosis has made it clear it's not going to be all of them either. And so it's going to be some combination. And with it being some combination, um, there's going to be like some time that passes. So hopefully we can get like, I think we're trying to get a proposal out either by tomorrow or Tuesday, either tomorrow or Thursday to get a proposal out. And if we can get that proposal out like by tomorrow or Thursday, I think that will put a lot of people at ease, at least seeing something that as far as a plan, and think that not only that plan that the users will see, but I think also having sorry, I'm multitasking. I got kids talking to me, but but I think also like with the that plan, I think in an event like this, you don't want to let a good crisis go to waste, right? And so we got so much exposure from all these different articles that we had never gotten before. So now there's people that know about us. Yeah, it's not good PR, but it is PR. So Gnosis is talking about doing a hard fork. That usually gets a lot of attention. I don't know if it's gotten much attention yet because it's only on the forums and there's no vote up. But I think when there's, and I think that's right, I don't know if there's a vote up or not. But once when the vote goes up, I suspect there may be some more attention. I mean, it's likely like you might see Coin Bureau talk about, and forks are pretty, hard forks are pretty big news usually. So what kind of tension? And if that tension takes place, they will they may mention, the exploit. And what we want to make sure is we want to make sure that we have what are we doing from a reimbursement perspective and what are we doing from a contract perspective. We want both of those communications out there ready to go as soon as that information, communication or any type of that stuff starts happening, so that those media outlets are able to reference what we're doing to show that we're not just sitting on the sidelines, we are taking action. So I think that's how you turn this around, right? That's how you turn this into bring more attention to it. The protocol's saved, people are reimbursed, and we've got even new users coming in now.
Yeah, it seems like that's completely crucial for Gnosis Chain to because I mean we have an ecosystem now where hacks are happening and people are losing money, and it's impossible to imagine a future where there's any type of mainstream adoption of platforms where users can expect to get hacked and lose their money. And that's kind of been what the situation is until today. And I kind of think this is a key moment for Gnosis Chain and the community of projects within Gnosis Chain to basically prove that there's a good way of handling these situations. Obviously, you don't want just a complete reimbursement of users from a treasury, because you're almost like letting the hacker get away with it at that point, and just incentivizing that to be the way that people exploit. Ideally you have a solution that is, first of all, incentivizing users to stay with Agave and 100 Finance. We want those projects to be thriving so that people who are coming into the Gnosis Chain ecosystem see this history of hacks and are able to look at how the response to it was and feel comfortable putting their money into it. But then also you want to incentivize hackers to be hacking for bounties and not destroying the wealth of people that are in the community.
Yeah, and I think I see where you're going with that, in the sense that you don't want Gnosis to set a precedence to say, hey, if somebody gets hacked, we just bail them out. You don't want. I mean, yeah, it's only 11 million, but the thing is like, what's the next one look like? And obviously, you can argue that, well, there was a lot of culpability in the fact that this bridge kind of created a lot of issues for everybody. But at the end of the day, like, you don't want to create this, system in place or this process in place where, the network can just bail out the protocol. And so I get that. But even like to your point, I think that's, really valid in the sense like, okay, this protocol did have to step up and they had to resolve the situation, and they had to do it, a lot of it on their own. And they're not a big, so like we're right now, our circulating supply, we're like a 1.6 million circulating market cap. I think 100 Finance is somewhere around, I think 10 times that. I think they're around 10 million, maybe more. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like, so like, how does 100 handle this situation versus how does Agave handle this situation? And I don't mean to compete with them or pit each other against one another, but how the protocols handle these things, I think, play a big role in the future of those protocols as well. So you can gauge those communities through their actions and the steps that they take in these hard times.
Right. Yeah, like when I think of other hacks, like I think of Cream Finance, and early on there was Yam a couple times. And I don't really follow up with a lot of those projects. Well, I guess I've never been so close to a project that got exploited to that level. But I'm wondering if you have any insight into what usually
Yeah.
happens after an exploit.
No, yeah, like me too. Like I've been in the space for a long time and I've been invested in a lot of protocols, but like there's projects that I'm a passive investor and I just invest my tokens or I buy tokens or I use their protocol, but I'm very passive. But then there's these protocols where I'm like taking a part in building that community. And as a builder, I've never been involved in any type of exploit that I can recall. Um, like the only thing that was close to us was that the Alvin token, um, but I wasn't close to that at all. I knew very little about it. I didn't even actually hold any Alvin tokens, and I'm an agave seed, and so
What
us
was the
pre-start.
Alvin token?
What was it? It so Alvin, like just like the idea was the One Hive community. In the short of it, basically launched an Alvin token, which was a play on Uniswap's Unisocks. So if you're familiar with Uniswap, they launched a token called Unisocks. And the idea was that only a very small supply would be minted, and you can redeem and burn that token for an actual physical Uniswap stock, like a stock that you put on your foot.
Huh.
And so some people redeemed it and got the actual physical stocks, and some people held the token and just betted on the speculation of that token price going up as people burned and redeemed it for the stocks. And so I think the stocks now are probably like $100,000 a stock or something like that. So I hope nobody like wears them or washes them. but like so Alvin was like, we're gonna do the same thing but do it better. We'll make this Alvin plushie, and we'll do the same thing. We'll mint a certain amount of tokens, and they'll be redeemable. Well, that took place, but um, basically what happened was there was an exploit of the contract, and somebody drained all the or minted, so many Alvin tokens, and basically sold them on the market, driving the price to close to zero. And so they basically dumped on through this exploit, and it was kind of a little bit of a you know it was a mess, but I wasn't involved in it. And so um you know the reason for me bringing that up is like I've never been involved in being a builder of an exploit or being close to an exploit as a builder or as a close community like active on that, like the team. The only exploits I've ever seen are as a passively as a token holder, and as a token holder, it's very different, right? You go into it, and if you get exploited, or if it gets hacked, or if there's a rug pull, you're looking for the community activity. And like you said, if like the devs are not responding and they're all like they're showing like do not disturb on their like avatar, you're like, what the heck, man? Like sky is falling, and like where are you? So yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing what a difference that makes. um, yeah, I've kind of been thinking about how you would structure a compensation for the people that lost money in a way that would make them keep using agave. And because it does seem to me like if you just give people the token value of the amount that they lost in Gnosis and Agave, even if it's streaming, then people are probably going to just sell it and not use that to go back into the system. And I think about this stuff. I think about like um, what if Gnosis like added their own money as collateral, and then the interest from that collateral went to the people that lost money until they recovered a certain amount, and then like over that time they're earning governance. But I just completely brainstorm these ideas and haven't thought any of them through. But I'm curious if like what those conversations are going like with Agave and Gnosis, and if there's any interesting ideas that are coming up.
Yeah. So, yeah, we hope to have like a proposal public by no later than Thursday. We definitely need it this week. I'm hoping to have it on Wednesday. Um, so if we can do that, that'll give a lot of insight to those questions. But yeah, if I like reflect on it as well, like there's been some good communication in the general chat and in the Agave Discord, and I think there's some people that have talked about like using like a debt token, where you mint it at the amount of debt, and then you get it gets repaid over time, whether through like protocol fee or is there some form of loan? So if you think of some hacks, what has happened is they've gone to other protocols and requested a loan. Well, in this situation, we're actually kind of in a good spot in the sense that like Agave is a lending and borrow, so we can loan from ourselves after we're up and running. And so, you know, we could, I mean, in theory, uh, if we ever got the Agave token added, um, and Luigi would say no, like stop talking, but because we're not going to do this because the Agave token is not liquid enough to do this. But like in theory, though, we could add Agave to our lending and borrowing platform and take out a loan against it and pay back that way. You're using your own and your own tokens without dumping the token in the market. So that's another way. There's the get prices, and then another way is dumping the actual token and raising capital through the selling of the. I haven't really heard
Monstro, I think
any.
we're losing you a little bit, or maybe that's just me, but you were cutting out a little bit for those last like 15 seconds.
Oh, see if my. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound
Am I
good.
good? Yeah, I was just saying, like, so there's the VC funding, there's the lend, you can lend or borrow and try to take out some various options there. You can create a debt token, and then you can also essentially dump your token on the market and raise capital that way. And so, um, so there's like variations of all those, and how do you take in those variations to come up with the best solution where you're able to get enough capital to pay off the, and you know, you can take in factors like time, you can take in factors of quantities and who and where is it coming from, and those things. But it's just a manipulation of all those variables to like try to get the solution or the outcome that you're looking for. I will say that like I am not interested in you know, selling the Agave token um, at, you know, current prices and dumping on the market and driving them. You know, that's been some concern of some people about dumping it and driving it to zero. I don't. That doesn't seem. That seems like a lose lose situation. You don't really gain anything. Our market cap is sitting at 1.5 million, and essentially the liquidity in the on the exchanges are around say $500,000. So at best, you raise $500,000. That's like nothing. So there's got to be, you know, you got to look at other solutions.
Right. Is there one that's your favorite? You have a preference of those options?
Um, to be honest with you, like none of them are good in my opinion. Um, the one of the things that I had on my stumbling here because I'm trying to figure out what to say. You're trying to trap me with these questions.
If you don't have a preference, then you don't have one. It's
I
fine.
do have a preference, but no, like one of the things about going into this whole thing was it was kind of a goal of mine not for any individual to hold more than 1% of the token. So that would be 1,000 tokens. I didn't want any one person to have more than 1,000 tokens. Now you can't necessarily prevent that from happening because there's an open market where you can buy tokens. But right now, like the most tokens you can buy, no matter how much you put on it, is 3,000 tokens. If you want to buy as many agave as you possibly want, the most you're going to get is about 3,000, no matter how much you spend. So, and that's just how AMMs work. But like, if the other thing that I was also wanting to make sure is that no DAO or no protocol would have more than 5%. So one hive had been given 5% share of the Agave token. So they hold 5,000 Agave tokens, and beyond that, like, um, and the reason for that is to remain like very decentralized, fully decentralized protocol, and so going into all this, like that was one of my goals, and so it's really hard to come up with a solution where you're raising as much capital as you have to raise without essentially taking an approach that may infringe on a situation where like you would have to get VCs to help fund. And so, VC funding is something that I don't see how it can't happen in a scenario like this. Otherwise, you're taking out a loan. Now, if you look at, so I took I did a little looking into like Popsicle Finance, the ICE token, because I was kind of invested in that one. And and what's interesting about them is they took out a loan, and they were going to pay off their, I think, a $20 million hack with loan payments. The first month went by and they paid off 5% of the loan, or 5% of the exploit. And then the second month comes by and they pay off 2.5% of the hack. And I'm thinking it's going to take them 2 years to pay this thing off. Like, and meanwhile, like the community goes ape. Like they are super excited. They're pumped. It's looking like they saved the planet from poverty through this like 7.5% payoff of the exploit. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? Like, how are they so amped about this? Like, I got pissed. Like 5%, that's it. And so, and you guys are saying that this is like extraordinary. And so, fast forward like a month or two, and their token goes like 20, 30, 40x. Well, then what they do is they took one of their leads on the project, basically distributed um, his tokens out to all those that were affected, and matched it at the market price, and said the value of the token is worth X, and was able to pay off the whole thing. And so they basically got lucky. Like their token went up 20, 30, 40x like overnight, and was able to pay off the entire debt. And so you look
Wow.
at some of the, and then you look at Wormhole example, and Wormhole, there's no way you can pay, what was it, like $300 million on that exploit. Nobody's got that to fund it except for very few, and so there's rumors that Bitfinex funded that, and so that's a VC scenario. So now, like, how much of is that Solana? I think how much of Solana is owned by Bitfinex, and so, but arguably, like that, could have been pretty devastating for all of crypto.
Yeah. So we got about 10 minutes, and I was hoping we could open it up for questions in the audience if anyone has any. But one more question on the hard fork. I saw that there's a potential holdup with HOPr because they're actually using the reentrancy feature in their product, and that they might need more time to fix that. Or do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I'm aware. We heard about HOPr early on, that they were the only protocol that was looked to be impacted by this hard fork. And as far as I know, and I haven't talked to that team directly, and I don't need to speak for them, but I think they seem to be supportive of the hard fork. Um, like they see that's okay, and it's good to go. It's just they need time, and they're asking for it not to be rushed. That's my understanding, and that's me just not really knowing. And so I may be wrong on all that, but that's what I'm hearing.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty big supporter of it, and the reason why is the primary driver is like if we're supposed to be this ETH 2.0 like replica or be a model for, then like we have to hard fork this, or we just don't become that model anymore. You can't
Right.
say we're a copy of ETH 2.0 and then have this huge variation. At least it looks pretty huge to me, at least from my perspective. Um, so I think that there's
Yeah.
no way of going around it, or you have to change your model of what you're trying to do.
Right. Yeah. It's the. I mean, yeah. Just yeah. If forking things from mainnet to Gnosis Chain isn't doesn't work, and if going the other way doesn't work either, then what benefit are you getting out of a test chain? Yeah, it seems pretty critical to that whole purpose of Gnosis Chain. So, if anyone has any questions, you can message in the cafe channel, or you can also raise your hand here, and we can bring you on, and you can ask it right here. So, fire away if you have anything. But, Monstro, what are your plans, kind of, for the next couple weeks here? Just as this keeps developing, are you staying involved and working on this a good amount?
Yeah, this will probably roll into mid-April. I suspect we'll see quite a bit of work all the way through mid-April, just through various different things that we have to do, and then always you always find work to do, and so um, I think we're busy for at least the next 2 years. So if there's not something to do, there's always something else to do that you didn't know that you had to do, but find out that you got to do it. So yeah, I think mid-April is at least like the booked out, but then going forward, hopefully we can get past some of this like firefighting, and not that we're going to be firefighting until mid-April, but we'll be trying to work on these solutions. But after mid-April, we can get back going to like implementing some of our roadmap, and it's a pretty aggressive plan probably, but I think that
Yeah.
ideal.
Well, you said that the proposal is supposed to go up sometime this week, right? Is that's a Gnosis DAO proposal, right?
Yeah, no, it won't. The proposal like on Snapshot or won't be going up, but like a forum
Yeah, the forum
post.
post. Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was imagining. Yeah.
and it'll be on Gnosis, yeah, because we'll be requesting certain Gnosis DAO.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that Boring said that there's questions in the Twitch chat, but I'm not on Twitch, so I can't actually see those. Monster, are you on the Twitch stream?
No, I'm on mobile. I don't have anything except for Discord open.
Okay. I'm trying to log into Twitch real quick, but
Yeah, while you're doing that, like from a One Hive community, I think there's still like a lot of things going on. I know we're pretty close to the Giveth community, and I think we're still trying to add the Fox token to Agave. And part of that was we wanted to make sure that we had some liquidity bootstrap on HoneySwap before doing that. And so the Fox Honey LP, we wanted that to grow a little bit deeper. And through that, I think there's like this Giveth stream that is being proposed for the honey fox token pair, and so I'm hopeful that that'll be launching here at least in April sometime. Um, so that'll be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that that's very close. I think that's gonna be live soon, and that anyone will be able to use that. Anyone will be able to
Right.
basically add rewards for any HoneySwap LP using whatever
Right.
token they want to incentivize with, and it streams.
Yeah.
Great.
And the Fox Honey will be incentivized with the Fox token. So I think we have something like, I don't know what it's valued at, but like maybe like $100,000 in Fox tokens or something like that. That will be incentivizing the Fox Honey pair. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. Boring is copying and pasting questions into the chat. Thanks, Boring. This is pretty helpful. So the first question: any plans to do a V2 Agave? Better UI, UX, more options?
Yeah, there's, we've talked about that, and yeah, I think I don't really have a depth answer to that. I would just say that yes, we do want to do that.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I'm sure it depends on the hard fork and the timing on that and what it actually means.
Hey, Paul, 1 second.
Okay. Every time we're talking Monstro, he's got a zoo full of kids in the back.
Can you hear them all?
Yeah, it's great.
I got too many dang kids, man. Too many. Like a bunch of monsters.
Well,
Monstro juniors out here.
you ever try to explain what's going on here? What you do for a living to them? It's got to be tough.
No, yeah, they're very familiar with the word crypto and Bitcoin and monopoly money.
Nice.
I get no respect.
Well, they're gonna be future. They're gonna be the guys building Web 4. Um, okay, we're at 3 o'clock, but I just want to get the last two questions at least in the air. So, are there any plans to make Agave deflationary? And what's the progress with the Garden and Agave cooperation? Do you have any insight on that?
The gardens cooperation has been a little bit difficult, and it's requiring like a lot more work than we anticipated. And I don't know if it had to do with the fact that we launched beta as like one of the originals, and so like some of the things like the parameters weren't set right, or I'm not exactly sure, but it's really been kind of a little bit unfortunate. We've been trying to get some resources to help us out with that. So if any of the One Hive or Gardens guys are listening, like we would need your help on getting that set up, because I think that that's one of the it was in my eyes the number one biggest selling point, more than Agave the protocol itself, was the use of the gardens, and unfortunately it's not functioning like exactly. In regards to the deflationary, I would vote no on that, and the reason why is because even though deflationary is very marketing attractive, it's a very poor use of capital. If you think about, if you have this, for one, we're DeFi, so we're not inflating our token to begin with. Whereas like Ethereum has an inflation, we don't. Our token is capped, and then what ends up happening is if you start to like restrict that, then you're not actually getting any use out of that capital. You're actually just flushing it down the toilet versus setting it aside. Like for instance, like right now we have 70,000 agave that have just been sitting and we have not been using it. So it's not like we're inflating the circulating supply. We've just been holding it. And now we have those available for this scenario. We can use some of those for this scenario. had we burned them, like hands would be tied. And so you can almost view it as like just as an emergency scenario type. It's not as attractive as like everyone loves to hear the idea of burning, but like there's really not a lot of value in burning and throwing away something. I'd rather do like a buyback program and set it aside into a treasury. That's more attractive to me. Like buying back the Agave token for like using like reserves to buy back Agave token. That's attractive proposal. But then on the flip side of that, people do like the idea of holding a diverse reserve. So a lot of people don't want to buy back the token because they want to hold those other assets. So it's definitely a deep conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I like your inflation points. I think that the Gardens dynamic issuance handles that really well, where the there is inflation. The inflation is restricted, but the idea is to just restrict it enough so that you know that it's going towards productive uses and not just inflation for the sake of inflation. It's like more tokens getting minted is related to tokens being distributed in proposals, because then that'll trigger the mint function, which will slowly regenerate that token supply. So if the proposals are funding useful things, then the value of the ecosystem is growing along with the value of the tokens and the number of tokens all at once. That's the goal. At least that's how national currencies try to work.
Yeah, I was early on when I was thinking about like deploying a token. I was trying to think about like Bitcoin and how it's deflationary. And really, to be honest with you, like if you want a world currency, I don't know that you want it to be deflationary. You just want to be able to like limit the inflation so it's not, it doesn't get out of control. But like a 2% inflation is not a bad thing necessarily, or a 4% or whatever value. I don't economist, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're past now.
Was there one more question, or was that all of it?
That was it. And Boring said thank you. Thank you, Boring. That was helpful getting those on the cafe chat.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, one more thing on the so we're over now, so you can stop it if you want, but like one more thing on the like that deflationary uh token subject, like a lot of these protocols, they'll, you see it, and you still see it today. Like you see a lot of these protocols that are, get hyped around certain buzzwords or whatever, or partnerships or whatever it may be. And at the end of the day, like a lot of those things like end up pigeonholing them into a short term scenario. And so like One Hive, for example, like say whatever happens over the next years or whatever, the One Hive token will continue to have a common pool. It'll continue to have a gardens. It'll continue to have these things. And so like there's no thing that we're doing today that is going to basically stop the future of One Hive. And so like you look at some of these other protocols that just implement like these really cool buzzwords, whatever they may be, but they're all like short-lived events, short-lived speculation, short-lived policies that get a good pump in that cycle. But think of all the protocols that were on the top 20, the last cycle. Many of them are, not as successful as they once were. Except
Yeah.
Dode, that one just keeps on pumping.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the honey price has gone down a lot over the last year, and it's really bummed a lot of people out. I think I've heard a lot of negative stuff about One Hive and honey, but that I had that same thought. Just the more you read into it, the more you understand how that ecosystem works, and it just became really clear. Like, oh wait, this token way outlives any of the specific people that are in this and that are like contributing right now. This is the economy is more resilient than the people in it, and it's like it's
Yeah,
not going anywhere.
exactly. I don't know what the token price is gonna. Yeah, I don't know what the token price is gonna look like in 10 years from now, but it may go down, it may go up. I don't really know, but like you said, it's more resilient than just the people here today, and I don't know what that means for the token price. I mean, I really don't. But at
Right.
the end of the day, like the project as a whole, like I've told many people, for years, is that like it doesn't matter if Bitcoin goes to $1, and I'll use Bitcoin as uh, a lot of you ETH maxis appreciate. But like even if it goes to $1, I'll still hold it, and the reason why I'll hold it is for it's the purpose that it serves, and it doesn't really matter the value of that token. So I think One Hive is the same way, and it's not to say that people don't care about the money, because obviously they do, but there's a purpose that it serves, and that purpose, when you remove the financial aspect of it or the monetary value of it, that purpose is still being served, and what is that worth? 10 years from now, it might be very different, very drastically different than it's worth today.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And one of those challenges is paying out that honey in a way that people can get compensated for things without needing to sell the token.
Yeah, I mean, Honey was a $30 million market cap without a single VC. That's pretty impressive, like, if you think about it. So it's not to say that we couldn't get there again one day. So, but like at the same sense, you just don't really know what's going to happen. I will say though, if the market falls apart, I'm going to be buying Monero on the next dip.
Nice. That's
I don't
some
trust these
monstro.
governments. Yeah, I don't trust these governments, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably a good idea. All right.
All right.
Well,
Appreciate the talk.
yeah, I'm really happy that you came on and talked about this stuff. It's been a hell of a week, and I was itching to find out a lot about how this has just been, just being in this. So thanks for coming on and telling how it's gone and giving us your insight.
Yeah, thanks everyone for having me. Thanks for listening. Thanks for everyone attending, and appreciate it. Have a good rest of your week.
All right. Bye, everyone.